All right, welcome everybody. So, as we are all following quite nicely, things are looking really good for Tesla. But what I wanted to do for a long time now is go through every aspect of Tesla and go through one at a time to see which ones are going well and which ones are delayed or which ones are potentially going to be an issue, which I don't think is going to be very many. So I've asked Brian White to join us to be with us today, and we're going to go through the state of Tesla. We're going to go through every single component. We're going to reevaluate each one. Welcome, Brian. Thank you for joining me.
Great to be here, Herbert. A pleasure as always.
Yes, it is. So Brian has his own YouTube channel called MyTeslaWeekend. I'm going to be adding that in the description. You need to be visiting him because he does really big, deep dives. Right now, he's going through a series, right, of is this car company doomed? And I see that you just did one for Jaguar, but you're going through every single one of them, doing really good analysis of where they're at. So great job there, Brian. So thank you for that. All
Yeah,
right, let's go through this.
yeah.
So this is the state of Tesla. What we're going to do is going to go through each of these components and we're going to evaluate where they're at right now, how they're doing. So clearly there's macro is not part of Tesla per se, but we know it's one of the big movers of the stock. We'll hear from the Fed today. We're going to find out what they're going to say very shortly. We're going to go through each gigafactory, not only Fremont, Tesla, Texas, and Berlin, but also Nuevo Leon. We're going to go through each one of these. The Cybertruck, is it on track? The Cessna Semi seems to be possibly delayed. The revised Model 3, the compact car, the Model Y, 4 to 6 8 batteries, FSD, energy, superchargers, Tesla Bot, and Dojo. And maybe there's something here that I'm missing. So I left a little blank there, Brian. So let's go through your thoughts. Any thoughts right here, Dale? Do you think that these are the right categories? Am I missing something, Brian?
I really do. I really do. I really do. And as you'll see, once we get into some of these, some things like a discussion, some of them tie together. So when we talk about the factories, we're going to talk about the semi and the Cybertruck and all that. So they all tie together. We'll figure it out by the end if we're missing something.
We
So
will. Okay, Brian. Yeah.
in terms of macro, I agree with you. It is a huge factor and it's beyond our control. It's beyond Tesla's control. The fundamentals are still working. Everything's still going in their favor. We're seeing a, a big slowdown in car sales in total in China. But we're not seeing that slowdown in Tesla sales in China. We're seeing some slowdown in car sales in Europe. We're not seeing a slowdown in Tesla sales in Europe. So whatever the macro is doing, it is not yet massively, at least, affecting Tesla's bottom line. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the macro situation.
Well, as we've been seeing, it looks like the stock has been responding well since January. And a lot of that is because of sentiment in the macro. Tesla is a growth stock, it is a narrative story stock. And people are realizing that, that things are starting. I mean, entire 2022 has been positive for Tesla, okay, in terms of its, launching the factories and hitting these wonderful milestones. But nothing happened to the stock because the macro. So now that we're turning into this possibly growth stage, we're off to the races. I still think there's a lot of room to run. And I think the big thing though is like you were just saying that macro affects people being able to buy big ticket items like a car. Interest rates were too high. And so when that was brought down, it's just going to be not going to be worse than where it is today, right? In terms of
I would
the
agree.
ability for people to buy things. So it's a big deal. Yeah.
That's absolutely my take. So does that mean it's time to get into the factories?
Yes, go to the factories. Okay, so you're the right
Let's do it.
person to ask because you follow each of these so closely. Let's talk Giga Fremont. I guess it's not a gigafactory, but tell me about Fremont. How's that factory doing? Did they shut down some? I think we heard that they slowed down some production lines because of the preparing for the revised Model 3. But how have they been scaling up, and are they at maximum? Tell me what's going on, Fremont.
In terms of their Model Y production, yeah, they're at or about maximum. It's Model 3 that gets interesting. There's two lines that produce Model 3s. It is entirely possible that they've been not running at full speed. And I believe that because we've seen higher Model 3 production out of that factory in the past, and there's no reason they'd be less efficient now. What I think they're doing is focusing all that production onto one of the two lines while they begin switching over the second line to produce the Highland. or the refresh or whatever it is we wish to call it. So I think they learned a hard lesson with the refresh of the models S and X. They lost sales for a year and a half, depending, and it caused harm. It caused harm, and you can't have that kind of gap with the Model 3. So I think in Fremont, that's the approach they're taking. And that will also be, and we can just cover Shanghai real quick if you want, or I can come to that in a
Sure.
second. That
Yeah,
in
your choice.
Shanghai,
Yeah.
it's the same story.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
two lines making Model 3 in phase one of the factory. That's the big part that's only one story tall. And I believe that they may have shut one of those lines down to begin production of the Model 3. We have seen drone footage from Jason Yang where it surely appears as though there is a Model 3 out in a fenced off part of the yard for testing, because it is a Model 3 and it has a big camouflage bonnet on the front. So it is very likely that that's what we're seeing, that that launch is imminent. So if you want a bargain on a Tesla, now is the time to get it. Of course, the Highland will
That's
be
the time to
better,
get it.
but it's going to be starting at a high price.
Yeah. Let's the higher level view of this. Okay. Tell me, where is Fremont standing today? So it's their first factory. They had to revise it, so it's not the most efficient. Are they going to be able to do anything here? Is there any more growth? And then, since we're talking about Giga Shanghai, wasn't there rumors that they're going to expand this? Now they're going to add another megapack factory. They might even expand the Gig factory expansion within, and also another one, right? How's the Giga Shanghai production? Are they on track? Way ahead of, it sounds like they're way ahead of track, and they're going to continue to just surprise us.
Shanghai, yes. To finish with Fremont, there's not much more production they can squeeze out of it until they switch to the Highland, which will be a more efficient version of what they build. I don't think we're going to see the unboxed method in use where everything comes in
Right.
modules that are just put together, but I think it's going to get the Model Y treatment at least, which will expand the capacity not this year, but next year. Then we've got, and in Shanghai,
Yeah.
are they expanding? We don't know. We don't know yet. That's the big second new Gigafactory announcement we'll probably hear, is having to do with an expansion either in China or elsewhere. A Megapack factory in China is a no-brainer. The LFP
Yeah.
cells are there. Cattle is making a new battery factory a mile away. It just makes sense. That's the sort of thing that's just going to happen. Now we should also mention Giga New York. I think they're going to be on a hiring spree soon because they need to make more chargers, don't they? So
Yes.
those are prefab chargers. They're more labor intensive to build at the factory than in the field, but that's a good thing because the total number of hours from raw materials to in the ground and running is vastly lower when you're making them on an assembly line than rather assembling them in the field. And there's less margin for error. Everything just improves. Uh, so we will see some expansion there. Nevada, where the semi is made and the batteries are made, we're still waiting to see the expansion for the semi begin. And that's a bit frustrating. Um, it could be that it began in the last week and that I haven't heard about it, but I think that's a bit unlikely, possible, but unlikely. And there is something delaying there, but we'll talk about that when we get to semi. And then other factories, Berlin, they're, I think, in
Mhm.
permit approval. Permits are pending to get a little bonkers on the expansion. One thing you'll see in Berlin that should tell you that a big expansion is coming is that in the far northeast of the site, they've put in a new concrete pad with what look like giant Lego block concrete
Mm.
walls in
Yeah.
little pens, as it were. That's typically where you would put sand and gravel for a concrete batch plant. Berlin already has a batch plant. This would be a much bigger one. This would be the sort of thing they need for a very large expansion. Why else would they build it except in anticipation of imminent construction sometime very soon? So that's what's going on there. And then Texas, the Megapack
Yeah.
installation is about to begin. And then Giga Nueva Leon, as you mentioned earlier, there's some questions there. The governor apparently recently announced a delay of what was it, 10 to 14
12 to
weeks, something like
12
that,
to 14 weeks, possibly. Yeah.
12 to 14 weeks. We don't know if that's permitting. I doubt it is. It's certainly to me a delay on Tesla's part, and it could be that they don't have the contractors lined up, or that they don't have the the plan sufficiently far along to make it make sense. We just know that when they break ground, they move very quickly.
Yeah, that news, I don't even know how real that is. I haven't heard anybody else except for this one article that talked about that the governor of Nueva Leon said that. I haven't confirmed and double checked and all that. So hopefully it's not true, but it could be. Okay, so that's a great roundup of all the gigafactories. They're progressing nicely. We know that Berlin and Texas are now at 5,000 per week. About a month ago, it sounds like they're still gonna, bumping that up and moving along, right? We're expecting the production numbers and delivery numbers to be very record numbers. It's looking like by the end of the quarter. So I think in general, I think
Yeah.
it's pretty good news for gigafactories, except for that Nuevo Leon one, possibly.
Yes.
Yep.
And uh, I'm not concerned if Giga Nueva Leon is 10 weeks late or 14 weeks late to
Yeah.
break ground. That doesn't even necessarily mean that their completion date is pushed out by 10 to 14 weeks. It could be that it
Yeah.
would have been, if they'd have broken ground today but didn't have all their contractors lined up, it'd still take the same amount of time. This is just a way of cost saving. And if you don't need to break ground today, spend another week getting the planning dialed in a little better so there's less rework along the way. A comment I saw
Yeah.
recently on a video of the construction in Berlin was, why are they tearing up this section here and redoing it? That's such an American thing to do. It's terrible. It's not an American thing to do. It's agile construction. You start the
Mhm.
construction before the design is 100% finalized. And the reason you do that is because time is money. And if you want perfection, it's going to take an extra 5 to 10 years to build it. And even then, it's still not going to be perfect. There'd just be a slightly smaller amount of rework. So the less they have to rework in Nueva Leon, the slightly better it is. But time is money. So it's a balancing act.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for saying that. Okay. Next big one, of course, is Cybertruck. This looks like it's on track. Everything we've known, they've hired people, right? They've their production line in place already. We're seeing sightings of Cybertrucks everywhere. What's your comment on the Cybertruck progress and the state of the Cybertruck?
Very exciting, of course. We've got sightings of the mega castings, as expected. The machine to do the bending and folding of the origami shell, we saw that go in last week. There's a very, very low likelihood it's already configured, but that's fine. It needs to be dialed in before you can enter production, of course. The delay on Cybertruck right now could be the stockpiling of batteries. We know that their capacity to build 4680s is not what they expected it to be at this time. And 4680s could be the bottleneck for the Cybertruck, unless they're going to do like they did with the Model Y in Texas and make it in two variants, a 2170 and a 4680, with slightly different specs and slightly different design. But I think they really want to avoid that if possible. I think they'd rather make just 2170 Model Ys and just 4680 uh, Cybertrucks. And for the folks tuning in who don't know what we're talking about with these numbers, it's just the shape of the battery. The 2170 looks more like a stretched out AA battery, where the 4680 looks a little more like a stretched out D battery. It's 46 millimeters by 80 millimeters and 21 millimeters by 70 millimeters. So they're about as tall, but one is more than twice as thick.
Okay, good. So the Cybertruck, what are you thinking, Brian? Are you thinking that it's going to actually come out in September, October? So all we've heard them say is that it's going to come out in Q3 or Q4. And what does that mean to you, right? So it's now January, February, March, April, May, June. Q3 is
So
July,
we,
August, September. Are you thinking September? Are you thinking October? What's your guess?
yeah. So we heard mid 23, lock it in. And mid 23 could be Q2 or 3. So Elon said, yep, Q3, lock it in. Uh, we will, I believe, see some in Q3. But I think they'll be closer to September than July. And I think
Mhm.
uh, that it may be a limited number, a very limited number, like how we saw the semi trucks go out in very limited number, just to say, yeah, see, we're doing it. And it could be that 100 or 1,000 go out, and that all of those just start generating massive buzz while they get the batteries or other elements, critical elements in place. So that's what I'm thinking is we will see fewer than honestly 5 to 10,000 this year is my current estimate. Uh, but it will absolutely come out in Q3 ish.
Yeah, I agree. So it's definitely going to come out, but it's going to be smaller numbers than we expect. But it's exciting. It's really exciting
It's
because
very
here we
exciting.
are. It's already June. So I think
Mhm.
this one is on track. I'm feeling really good about it. And the next one here we're going to talk about is Tesla Semi. I think we're a few of us were disappointed with this. It came out in December. Pepsi is uh, testing it. We see a bunch of Tesla semis for Pepsi still seeing around, but we haven't heard much about it. What's your thinking and what have you heard about Tesla Semi?
So I'm deeply disappointed. I have a source inside that building who was very accurate leading up to the actual delivery event, letting me know that they were producing at that point about one a day, which would roughly coincide with the numbers that we saw delivered so far. But once the delivery event happened, they kind of slowed to a crawl. I'd be surprised if it's anywhere close to one a day. It doesn't seem like it. Now, the latest I heard from him, I haven't touched base in a little bit, so I will do that this week for you, is that they are still capable of producing one. They're capable of producing one a day. They have not expanded beyond that, and I don't know if they've actually done that. So it's very disappointing. We haven't seen them break ground on the new factory. We haven't seen anything that would lead us to believe that a 10,000 truck quarter is around the corner, or that we're going to start seeing these in all of the lower 48 even anytime soon. So I don't know what on earth is going on. If he's saying we are not battery constrained and we can make these with 2170s and hit all the specs, what are you waiting for? I mean, at least build them one a day. That would still be 1,000 over the first 3 years while you're getting the bigger factory dialed in. It just seems like it's, as he said, Master Plan 3 is all about massive scale. And this is, I feel like if it's not going to be massive scale, he doesn't want to do it. That's my take on that.
Mhm. Okay. Let's move on. So Model 3, you and I did an incredible show just last week where we talked about the revised Model 3. We did a huge deep dive on it. We talked about pricing, we talked about segmentation, we talked about naming even. So the Model 3 revised Model 3, you and I believe that it's going to come out in July very soon. But tell me the state of the nation of the Model 3 in general. I mean, yeah, what's your thinking on this?
It's so exciting. If you look at, let's say we're right and that they have got two parallel lines and they're ramping the new one while still building the old one. They don't have to shut off that old line right away. They can still make another week or month or quarter of the, let's call them 2023 Model 3s, where the new one would be a 2024, for example. They could still make those because fleet buyers will still scoop them up all day. Value buyers would still scoop them up all day. And I don't see those two buyers conflicting with each other. I think when Highland comes out, they will start with a premium version at a premium price with a nice thick margin. And people who want the latest and greatest will get it. The people who buy the iPhone 14 Pro are the people who will be buying the Highland over the old Model 3. The specs aren't going to be wildly different, but it will definitely be a better car. And it's the new hotness. People want that. So I think whether they do a hard switch to just Highland or keep the old line running as hard as they can for a limited time, get them while you can. These prices won't last. Um, I think they're going to still sell every unit they make. And the numbers don't need to fall off dramatically while they're redoing this line for the next generation. So in Shanghai, same thing. And those are the only two factories where the Model 3 is made. The state of the Model 3 is very exciting because if you look at the old one, it's very cheap and it's very good. And if you look at the new one, while the price is unknown, it's better. Maybe not the price, but certainly the technology
Yeah.
underneath it.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy to think about it actually that we're going to get two new vehicles in the next 3 months? We're going to get the Cybertruck and we're going to get the revised Model 3.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a kind of like a magnitude change or a step change for Tesla. So yes, we saw the launch of the Tesla Semi, delayed, but Model Y is going crazy. Now we're gonna get a revised Model 3. We're gonna get the Cybertruck. We're gonna have a complete lineup here. So let's talk Model Y. Best selling still, right? We're seeing numbers coming out, still the number one best selling car in May for China and Europe. And then just yesterday, they also announced a small bump, another $250 increase in the price. So there doesn't seem to be a demand issue for this. What's your thoughts on all this?
No, I saw a terrible tweet saying if you look at the average price across the various manufacturers, you see the price war is only something Tesla engaged in. The other companies didn't have a price war. Their average prices actually went up, which is completely dishonest because it takes all models into account rather than just their EVs. On some of them, they have tried to drop their price of EVs and they're just not moving. I saw a video from Kyle at Out of Spec where he was at a VW dealership and they had dozens of ID3s on the lot just sitting there waiting, pretty please someone come buy one. So I looked on Auto Trader and I found 1,000 within 100 miles of LA. I looked at Volvo and saw about 1,000. I looked at Kia and saw over 1,000. I looked at Ford and saw again hundreds and hundreds, but probably about 1,000. Everybody else is having trouble moving their cars, and you could Tesla's having trouble too. Are they? Because the sales numbers keep going up. Yes, the amount of days of inventory on hand has increased, but that's because the capacity has increased. The number of cars actual physical number of cars they will have will
Mhm.
increase. Because if they have 5 days of inventory at a production of 100,000 versus a million, it's 10 times as many cars. So it's not 16 days of inventory is what they had at the end of last quarter. That is not very much. The industry standard is between 30 and 60 days, and there are plenty of companies with over 90 to 100 days of inventory on hand, and it's just a sitting there. And by the way, those dealers, those manufacturers consider those sold when they're transferred to the dealer because the dealer pays for them. That's a
Right,
sale.
right,
Even if the
right.
cars sit on the lot for 10 years without selling, as in the case of the one Kyle bought. He just bought a brand new 2012 Hyundai Kona. It just
Okay.
sat on the lot. They never sold it. So,
Okay. So back to the Model Y. We were just talking
yes,
earlier that the
right.
macro. So with the macro improves, are you going to expect the Model Y sales to just continue to grow even from where they're at? I mean, how much more can the Model Y keep like growing in sales?
How much can you reduce the price? It's always going to be a factor. There are limits to how much supply and demand works. If you could drop the price to infinity low, all the way to zero, the demand would be infinity high. But obviously, you can't do that because there's a material cost. So they are still increasing production.
Right.
Shanghai, and Berlin, and Texas are not fully ramped. They're both adding two more lines of production. Those factories are both going to triple in capacity at least over the next year ish. So, will they sell all of them? Yes. That may mean the price goes back down. That may mean the price goes up. But as you know, their pricing is adjusted daily based on
Mm.
actual demand and actual sales. The dealerships can't do that because they don't even know what the actual sales are. They just know what the dealers bought. And that's a very unclear picture that you get. So the prices can go up and the prices can go down. And in both cases, Tesla still makes money, just in some cases, they'll make more per unit.
Yeah. Okay. And then have you heard about the Model Y Juniper, which is what I think is the revised Model Y? Is that postponed? Is that something we need to have at all? What have you heard on that?
I haven't heard anything serious that would make me believe that the Y is on the precipice of an imminent reimagining, because it's already got substantial changes that are not even fully implemented with the structural battery pack. I don't I don't have any reason to give those rumors any weight at this time.
Okay. Yeah. Doesn't make
But it
sense
is the
actually.
best selling car, and they're going to make more of them, and they can sell them even if they have to drop the price. The Model Y is one of the it's the most boring but most exciting thing going on right now. And like you said, if they redo the 3 and get the Cybertruck, that means from December to what, August, July, August, they'll have had 3 new models come out in the same year.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense to have a revised Model Y anytime soon. The revised Model
Yeah.
3s, because when they built in 2018, the cost to build it was so sky high compared to what they're able to build Model Y. So now they're gonna, redo it so they can make the car cheaper. Model Y is already taking advantage of all of the things that best practices for cost production. So unless there's some another level step change, it doesn't make sense to need to do one,
The next the next level is the unboxed production method, but they're not
right?
going to start rolling that out into older models until they get it dialed in on the newer
Yeah, they
models.
said they said it's not Model Y. Yeah, it may never
Yeah,
be done in the Model Y. All right,
yeah.
next topic here is the compact car. So we did talk about Giga Nueve Leon. That's the one that's going to be making the Gen 3 platform robotaxi and the compact car. So, I like what you said earlier. So you said that if just because there's a delay in the groundbreaking, it may not necessarily translate to delay in factory and not necessarily delay in compact car release. What have you heard about anything new
And
about
and
the Gen 3
and
platform?
what if the comp? Oh, yeah, I got you. And what if? And so what if it is delayed by 3 months over the course of the next 5 years? Does 3 months matter that much?
Right.
So here's the beauty of the compact car. Now, a lot of U.S. companies don't want to deal with compact cars, even if, well, I can only get 5%, 10% margin on cars. On these, 5% at 20 grand, it's not worth my time. Okay, Toyota is going to build them. In fact, Toyota just announced, we're doing it, baby. We're going to build a factory that makes affordable, compact electric cars, and it's going to have a capacity of 1.6 million units.
Right.
What year was that by again? 2030, right?
Yeah.
That's by 2030. They want to get their compact up, and there's so many magical elements critical to it. We're going to have structural front and back castings, just like Tesla. We're going to have, the mega castings. We're going to have the structural battery, but we're going to have dry electrode. Tesla's only partially a dry battery process. We're going all the way solid state with ours, and it's going to have 600 miles of range, and it's going to be 20 grand, buddy. That's too many miracles in one. But let's say they pull it off. Let's say they pull it off. 1.6 million. Giga Nueva Leon is going to make more than that by a lot. At least 25% more, probably 300% more, 200% more. So, and they're going to be out 4 years later at, at best than Tesla.
Mhm.
That is not a winning strategy. And Tesla's about to announce another factory, presumably where the compact will be built. So the compact is a big deal. I get it. If you don't want to sell something for 20 grand that only has a 5% margin, I get it. $1,000 a unit, that's tough. That's really tough. But Tesla's not targeting 5%. They're targeting 20%. That's 4 grand a unit, 4 million cars, $16 billion a year
Yeah.
in profit from one factory. So is the compact a big deal? I don't know, Herbert. What do you think?
I think it's a big deal. But okay,
It's a big
let me
deal.
ask you this question though. So, gigafactories, you've been following how fast they're built and so forth. And they need to build Giga Nueve Leon because it's a brand new unboxed model. It's a brand new design for a factory. If they announce another factory, which I think Elon has said it's going to be likely announced before the end of this year, the next gigafactory. does that is like the announcement of it means that they'll still take a year before they actually do their groundbreaking, and so there was a given time for Giga Nueva Leon to be built already, or would they actually build the second one while they're building the first? It doesn't make sense that they would do that, though, right?
It absolutely does.
Oh,
In
really?
When they announced Berlin, they
Mhm.
almost immediately thereafter announced Texas. Now it was a 3-4 month delay. For the beginnings of phase one, they used the same blueprints. The only reason they deviated was because they did two capital raises that summer of 5 billion and 5 billion again. Now you've got an extra 10 billion. Texas was originally going to be built over 3 phases. They switched it to a single phase for all three to include the Cybertruck and the Model Y and the batteries all under one roof. So it
Yeah.
became something different along the way. Texas only broke ground 3 months later than Shanghai, than Berlin. It is bigger, and it finished about the same amount of time. Even though Texas had so much more regrading to do to fill the valleys and knock over the hills, and but Berlin had a prolonged COVID shutdown, so there were delays on both sides. I think if they believe the design is good enough to move forward in Texas, you can just take the same blueprint and use it somewhere else and build the same factory at the same time. And I think that's what they would do, just like they did with the Berlin and Texas race.
Gotcha. You're saying the blueprint for Nuevo Leon, that if they feel like they've designed this, they're ready to create it for the next one. Um,
Right.
yeah, I like that. Okay, I did not know that, Brian. Thank you. I was getting worried that they would have to wait a full year or even a year after that it's built just to see if it's the right design. It sure sounded like from Tom Drew, he said something like, you know, we've got this brand new way. We need to build a brand new factory. And once this factory is, I don't know exactly words he said, but we're going to replicate this, Fast and Furious is like what he was hinting at, right? This is going to be replicated quite regularly.
That sounds right to me.
Okay. So the next topic, I keep always referring to you, Brian, as the Gigafactory expert, but you're also an expert in batteries. You've done quite a number of videos, deep dive in those. So let's talk about batteries. Tell me the state of the nation for Tesla and their batteries. Um, we've heard and we kind of saw that there was a delay in the 4680 based on what they were promising. And we saw that through 2022. Then they started to change their model to providing more LFPs and kind of mixing up the mix of that. Where do you think the progress is for 4680s? And is it even necessary at this point? Like, I think it's necessary for the Cybertruck for sure, but not for other cars at this point. Correct? What's the situation there?
So the 4680 had two objectives: higher energy density uh, and lower cost. And so far, it hasn't delivered on higher energy density or lower cost.
Hmm.
If it had been the silver bullet, we might be ahead of where we are now, but I don't know how much. It doesn't appear to have been too much of a bottleneck.
Yeah.
The 2170s appear to be in sufficient supply coming out of Nevada. The LFP batteries have improved to a level where they can be used in standard range models, and they're good. They're good batteries. And Tesla is
Mhm.
largely form factor agnostic, largely chemistry agnostic, as long as it's a quality battery that isn't going to go boom and it can deliver the discharge rates and performance we need. Hey, it's important. Then it's
Doesn't
then
go
it's good
boom.
enough. Then it's good enough. It doesn't go boom. So they've switched from using lithium ion in their stationary storage, the Megapacks, Powerwalls, and Power Packs, to now using LFP. It's got more longevity and it's better, and it frees up those cells to move up the chain. You could absolutely build a Cybertruck without the 4680. You just might not
Oh,
have the margins you want. You can build a Plaid without 4680. What difference do you think there is between a Plaid pack and a 4680 Cybertruck pack? It hasn't provided the tremendous weight savings and value that was hoped. So that pack would be expensive, like it is on a Model S or X, but there's no reason you couldn't use 18650s for it. So I think it'd be something they could do, just something they don't want to do. That's my take on it.
Okay.
Oh,
So I'm a little
and the
confused because
delays, real quick.
yeah,
One last thing. The
yeah,
delays extended to other manufacturers who were building prototype cells in the 4680 form factor. Panasonic was supposed to already be delivering
right.
cells, and they have delayed that and said, you know what, we're actually going to just increase 2170 production instead. So
Yeah.
there is something bedeviling about this form factor that both companies at least have had trouble getting perfected. Go ahead.
Yeah, but we also heard that they've approved Giga Nevada to continue moving forward with that line. So they wouldn't have done that if they hadn't locked down the 4680 development. So still
Correct.
confusing, right?
And we've also got a new facility in California to support the production of batteries in Lathrop. Now, we don't know if that means making the batteries like they do in Lathrop or yeah, at the Cato Road facility, um, or if that just means that they're going to be making components for it. It could be that they've got a cathode assembly project there similar to the one going
Yeah.
in Texas. So it's tough to say.
Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is like, all of 2022, people were saying this 4680 delay. Uh-oh, cars are now going to be delayed. Then they came out and said, we've got enough batteries for 2023. Everybody relaxed. What exactly are we saying here? So I think what I heard you say earlier is that yes, there's a delay in developing the 4680 as per what they had promised, but it doesn't really translate necessarily to much except for maybe margin or something like that, right?
That's exactly right. We would rather have the 4680, but we don't need it to move forward. We'd rather have the prime rib for Christmas, but if it's a turkey or a ham, everyone's still getting presents. That's, I think, the big takeaway there.
Okay, Brad, sure. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So let's talk full self-driving. Tell me the state of the nation of full self-driving. It's getting very exciting. It feels like
It's
it's
getting
moving forward.
exciting.
Yeah.
It is hit and miss with every update. It's always one step forward, one step back at this point. I think it's not two steps back. But we see some really great uncut 4K real time videos from channels like Whole Mars blog, Whole Mars catalog, who shows what's really going on. You get some videos that show the good with the bad from people like Joe Tetmeyer. He only puts those on Patreon because he's afraid that there could be backlash. I've tried to suggest people get it.
No. Yeah.
Tesla has shown situations where it's gotten better, but where it's also gotten worse. It's getting really close. Now I'm looking at the drives we're seeing from Waymo and Cruise, and those look almost perfect, but you need perfect for level 4 or level 5. They look almost perfect, and in ways that Tesla doesn't, but Tesla looks one step down from that in the whole world, not just in a couple of geofenced areas. And I think if Waymo and Cruise's approach was easy to scale, they'd have already done it. So I think the state of FSD remains good, but I think the arrival of true FSD remains over the horizon, not on the horizon.
Well, this is where you and I differ again. I'm much more of a tech guy who follows, kind of the exponential curve. And as long as FSD continues to make these incremental improvements, that means that they can solve these problems. And then something that Elon just said, I think literally within this week, he said that the rate of improvement for FSD is increasing. This is exactly what you're looking for. The rate of improvement is increasing. So you're going to start seeing more and more of these issues fixed. And remember, they had to go through a complete software stack rebuild from, kind of a written software to neural nets. And so it takes time for the neural nets to kind of, get the sense of where it's at and then learning from there. I think that that's where we're at. So I'm pretty optimistic.
Well, he's saying that, yes, he's saying that it's the rate of improvement is getting steadily faster and faster, but that's not what I'm seeing from the test drive videos. And maybe we're watching different test drive videos. To me, it
Yeah.
looks like
No, no, no.
some of the
Yeah.
hard stuff is getting better, and that's great. But some of the easy stuff is getting worse, and that's less
You
great.
got to
Um,
remember what
yeah.
they've already said, which is when they launch a new version that comes out, they purposely dial it back in to be safety first. And then after a week or two of that, then they've got it out there, people using it, then they kind of make it much more smoother drives, and they've solved the little bugs that they have with it. So it does feel like there's always one step back, but that's one of the reasons. And also because when they tinker with the neural nets, it needs time for it to kind of like, okay, let's relearn what I had to, because they refresh it kind of thing. We need to relearn again to get it because it's a brand new neural net, right? So, um,
I would say a word
yeah,
of caution for anyone viewing this is AI generally, neural nets are a new thing that's hard to wrap your head around.
yeah,
If you don't get it, don't feel bad because I'm trying my best and I barely get it. And I'm not being modest. I'm telling you, a lot of like when I watch you and Robert, I am just in over my head because it's like you're speaking a foreign language because AI is a foreign language and just
yeah.
understanding it at all can be quite difficult.
Yeah, I am not an expert. I am just a tech person. I am in the software technology business, not as a developer, but as somebody who's kind of a product manager. But I've been interviewing all these people that are machine learning experts and understanding and hearing from them what they're saying. So, okay, it's still obviously hard to say where it's at, but it sure feels like we're moving forward. We're hitting milestones, and it's happening. Um, Okay, good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
full stack is here. I just asked the question to Omar earlier this morning. What is the next milestone to Chuck Cook and Omar? And they said that the next milestone is smart summon and reverse smart summon,
Mm.
being able to accomplish that. So, okay,
It's a very
next
frustrating
one.
obstacle. I think. Yeah. Go ahead.
Next big topic is Tesla energy. So, what are you thinking? I mean, we're hearing that things are moving quite nicely. There's continuing to sign these agreements, and big giant agreements are happening. The last investors day, we had Zach say that by Q3, Q4, they expect to start reporting on Tesla energy along with the vehicle deliveries in production. You're going to get mega pack deliveries in production. Um, what's your thinking of where energy is sitting today?
It couldn't be more exciting. They've got a good system and they've got it figured out. Every unit they sell at a profit. So the more
Yeah,
units they sell, the more profit they make. They've got that factory in Lathrop pretty well dialed in. Maybe not all the way, but if the floor plan is sufficient for scaling, if it's the right floor plan, even if it's not dialed in, that means it's time to submit the blueprint to Shanghai and get one built there or somewhere else yet again. Then the only constraint is we know Tesla has enough batteries for stationary and vehicle purposes for 2023. If they double both of those in 2024, will they still have enough capacity? And I think that's what we're finding out right now from the suppliers is, can we do this now? Do we need to wait 3 months, 6 months? But these are going out in big, big numbers. I've seen a number of skeptics say, yeah, but everybody's making them. Why would I buy cattle batteries from Tesla when they make their own Megapack type product? And I guess the answer is trust, better software. There are very few companies that have the kind of software expertise and competencies you see from Tesla. And if you save just 1% more in your attempts to arbitrage with AutoBidder, that's going to pay for the entire pack over its lifetime. So
yeah.
it's, yeah, it's efficiencies. I am very excited about it. I think there's room for the price to go down, but not anytime soon because the backlog remains too long. There are plenty of applications for which $2.5 million a pack is still a good deal. And as soon as we get through all those customers, you start dropping it to keep the lead time to an appropriate level. But even with no customers, Tesla still has their own uses for it. Power packs at different superchargers, like mega packs at every factory. And then, yeah, they've got enough in-house demand to take up quite a bit of that.
Brian, from your understanding, right, the Lathrop Megapack factory is gangbusters. It's scaling properly. We've not heard anything that says it's slowing down, correct? Like we are expecting it to be
I've
in full scale by the end of this year, as far as we're concerned. it's heading
Yes,
that way,
as
right?
full of
Yeah.
scale as Tesla ever gets, because Tesla hits 100, and just like the rockets on the Challenger, which were upgraded over time, they throttle up
Mm.
beyond 100%. You can go back and see old space shuttle footage where the launch tower is saying, the launch control saying, increase throttle to 108%. That's what Tesla does every day in every factory on every line. So whatever
Yeah.
number they said, once they ramp to it, they will ramp beyond it because that's how you get to the moon.
Yeah, that's how you get to the moon. Okay, sounding like Tesla Energy is on fire. Maybe it's just going really well. So, again, these agreements are being signed left, right, and center. And we're not paying attention to it. Just it's amazing. All right, the big topic of this week has been the Supercharger Network. So this looks like it's a 100% win. We've got
100%.
so many companies now after the Ford partnership falling in line. They have no choice but to do it. It's funny that we heard today that Stellantis, they made a note saying that they're still thinking about it. They're still thinking about it. There's no options for them. Oh my
No.
god. So
And so some criticisms I've heard is that, well, this is just going to clog up the network. And it's not in the US, because do you realize how few cars those companies have actually sold that are on the road and could even charge at a supercharger? It's a small number. And this will encourage them to build in places that they might not have otherwise. This will encourage them to build at a greater pace than they might not have otherwise. This may allow them to get federal subsidies, which would allow them to expand even more quickly and more profitably. And then there's the whole fact that they're going to make a little bit of money on each charge. And it might only be $5, but gas stations make very little money on the gas that they sell. Most of the money is in the convenience store. They make something like, and I don't know if this number is still true, but 10 years ago, it was something like 15 cents a gallon was the markup. That was all they were making. And that's fine because that's, 2, $3 per person filling up. You can easily pad in $2 or $3 of margin. That's within the range of markup Elon suggested when they were when he was talking about the fact that it's not going to be a profit center, but it will generate enough money to cover its own costs, including expansion. So that is a markup, and everybody who uses it is going to be providing that. And what a sales opportunity. You got you pull in your Hummer and you plug in and you're getting even 300 kilowatts. You're going to be there for like 3 hours. It is a big, it is massive. And it's nothing wrong with the charger. You just bought the wrong car. If you run your Hummer down to close to zero and plug it in at home on your 50 amp charger, you're only going to draw about 40 amps. It's going to take 8 to 13 hours to charge up that battery all the way. 13 hours. That's that's crazy. That's leaving your oven on full blast for 13 hours. That's bonkers, man.
I every time you go to a supercharger and you plug in, you're gonna step out because you want to stretch your legs, go to the whatever it is, the hotel or the restaurant, and you talk to people that are nearby because you got nothing else to do. So could you just it's gonna be funny. It's gonna be hilarious to see these other car companies that, oh, I see your Cybertruck, here's my Hummer. Tell me more
Oh,
about it.
here, let me show you something. Oh my, wait, you have a frunk? What is that about?
Drunk?
Yeah, we all have frunks in
Right,
this
right.
brand.
It's gonna
So
be
yeah,
great,
and
but I
there's
think
other yeah, well, there's other marketing advantages too. There's other benefits to it. Just having Tesla on everyone's lips is important. And I did see one person ask, does this make Tesla run the risk of antitrust violation? Is this a
Mhm,
monopoly? And the answer is
mhm.
no, because they still don't command more than half the market, and you can charge at home. If they were to start saying, oh, and also your car will not charge unless it handshakes with an official Tesla charger, that would be a monopoly. That would be shut down. But you don't have to use their network at all, ever. So, yeah, the monopoly issue is not a concern.
No. At the end of the day, this has so many different kinds of benefits of Tesla. I mean, you basically own the energy. But it's like it's a partnerships. Every time you strike a partnership with one of these OEMs, legacy manufacturers, it's much easier to then expand it because Jeff Lutz was explaining how supplier partnerships are done. You create a master service agreement, you're a supplier on record, and it's just simply from there adding appendices afterwards to add full self-driving, add more
Yeah,
ADAS features. Um,
yeah.
the software teams from both companies are going to work together so that the Tesla API can communicate with the legacy auto app. It's uh it's great. Okay, out of the
And
park,
the
huge
solution,
win.
real quick, the solution to FSD is not a destination, it is a journey. Once we reach level 5, those engineers aren't going to stop working on it. They're not going to stop trying to make it even safer. It's just going to be at a level where they're saying now it is ready for deployment while we continue the march of nines past the destination.
Yeah. All right, next topic is Tesla bot. And come on, man, you cannot tell me that we are not so far ahead of Tesla bot. They just announced that we're going to do it 2 years ago. And here we have a bipedal walking bot that's able to now be taught and learn on itself. I just did a video with Scott Walter where he reviewed 10 different bots, all the latest bots that are out there. And you can see that, there's three things you're looking for in a bot, right? Does it have the brains to make decisions and learn? Does it have a hands and the ability to maneuver, the ability to walk? And does it have the senses, vision, senses, touch, be able to make these things? And each of the bots, they all have one area that is deficient. They're not able to do one of these three areas. And so, vendors, robot manufacturers have to decide, and they just either don't, most of them don't have the brains. They're teleoperated from a human using VR, moving them. And some of them don't even
Or
have
they're on rail.
locomotion
Yeah.
on rails.
Oh,
They're
sure.
just on wheels. But Tesla Bot is the only one that has all three. And more importantly, Tesla is the only one that can manufacture this on scale. I think the only one that could possibly do it is Hyundai, that
Mhm.
might be able to do this. And so, yeah, it's
And Volkswagen bought another or bought a robotics company as well. Volkswagen has good manufacturing skills. Hyundai has good manufacturing skills. But I think the fourth point is the one that is to me the most important, which is manufacturability at a reasonable price. The if the spot dog costs from Boston Dynamics costs like $75,000. As a result, they've only sold a few hundred of them. If you could drop that price to $8,000, you could sell 10 times as many, 100 times as many, but they can't. It costs more than that to build by a lot. And just putting it on an assembly line is not going to magically make it a $5,000 toy. They've got fundamental design problems that make it extremely expensive. And then so I saw a number of comments saying, why didn't Tesla just buy a company like all the other guys did? The answer is the other guy's approach is wrong. All we'd be buying is bad habits, bots that are too expensive, bots that aren't smart enough, bots that we can't manufacture at scale, and bots that don't have the kind of mobility ranges that we need to actually make this happen. So I agree with you completely. It's better to start on your own. And the fact that they've got a bot that can walk and grab and touch and do all that in 2 years doesn't mean they're geniuses. It means that part of the problem has become easy over the past 20 years. But the brains part is where Tesla really exceeds, and the manufacturability is where they're going to crush it.
Yeah, the biggest advantage that Tesla has over these other nine companies who are making bots is that they are building the bots in a Tesla is building the bots in a company that is building cars, that is building energy packs, that are building all these other businesses. What I mean by that is that they're not having to spend money on an overhead. I need to buy a factory now. You don't need to do that. I need to hire all kinds of employees. I don't need to hire everybody doesn't have to be brand new. The overhead, the cost of that is all just sunk costs already for them. So for them, the cost of building this bot is, incremental. Versus if
The
you're a
cost,
brand new
yeah,
company trying to create it, you have to build entire organization, and you have huge costs to build, which means that you need to build a product and sell it fast Otherwise, you're gonna run out of money. You're not gonna profit from this. And then the other thing is Tesla will be its own customer. So they can start using these bots internally and save money. They don't need to try to convince anybody that this is a valuable product now able to do things. They can just start using it themselves and saving money for themselves. Yeah,
So
it's
exactly to your point, well, I'm going to build you and me. We're going to build a bot. I we need to simulate crashes. We need to test it in the computer. We don't have the software. We don't have the engine.
yeah.
You know what? They're
We
just
don't
going
have
to
a
kick it over to
supercomputer.
Steve. We don't have a super.
Start with
They're
that.
just going to kick it over to Steve. He's gonna dial and punch it in. Well, okay. Now we need some material scientists. Now we need somebody who can build custom electric
Right.
motors, battery management. Right. Okay. Well, that so then we'll talk to Dale and then we'll talk to Mark and then we got it. Oh, I don't have a Dale, a Mark, and a Steve, but they do. So yeah, like you said, they've got all these not just departments but competencies in house that's going to make it a whole different ballgame.
And that's why we saw that the development of this bot is so much faster than anybody expected. It's crazy where we're at today. So I think this is way ahead of schedule, and very, very excited to see how fast it's going to come out. I don't want to get too excited about it, but it's like, again, I interview all these experts, and they're actually the ones, shockingly, unanimously saying how easy it is to create the bot. And it's just a matter of them deciding to lock it down. If they feel like the bot is developed to a certain point that they should replicate and create 1,000 of them, they can do that tomorrow. But if they think that, well, let's hold off before we build 1,000 until we just got a little more testing done, then that's what the delay is. But other than that, it's not hard for Tesla to create 1,000 of these bots, and then they're using the FSD, and you saw that they've already achieved the big thing, which is, if I teach you something, can you learn on your own and then do that action? And they've achieved that. So we'll see what happens, but certainly going way faster than we all expected.
Right. And one thing I've seen in the comments repeatedly when we say it's worth a trillion or 5 trillion or whatever number, people say, well, not in 5 years, maybe in 10. Okay, so we can agree that in 10 years this is $1 trillion prospect. My friend, you should be loading up on stocks if that's what you believe. And you're a skeptic at that point, so great, do it.
All right, the last point we have here is a generic kind of roundup of AI. It's all AI. So there's Dojo that they've been working on for the longest time. People forget that Tesla is working on basically a supercomputer. They're using NVIDIA today. Then they're not going to drop NVIDIA, but they're going to continue. They have the ability to create their own supercomputer. But in general, Tesla, Elon said that they're going to become an AI company. So it'd be curious to see how Tesla works with X.com and Twitter and then the new company Truth GPT, how they're going to all work together to accelerate AI. And again, I interviewed James Dalman. He said that AI is being used everywhere in Tesla, everywhere.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
Tesla is an AI company. They just haven't communicated that well to people, and it's going to go well. So, even this one, I think that Tesla is progressing so much faster than anyone else. They just haven't kind of communicated. And this is where I think the bot's going to be the way for the general public to see and actually experience that Tesla is an AI company. It's going to be physically available there.
It's going to be very cool. I would like to mention that this Saturday I'm going to be at the Tesla Owners of Michigan's event at Pier Marquette Beach in Muskegon, Michigan. If anyone wants to come out, it's from noon to 2. We'd love to see you there.
All right. Let's just quickly wrap up here. But this is the state of Tesla. Thank you for going through with this with me, Brian. We went through each of these topics. Some parts were slower than we expected, but most things are ahead. At the end of the day, Tesla's an amazing company and they're continuing to grow. So thank you again, Brian. This is fantastic. Really appreciate you joining me for this.
It was a great time. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.